So the list of attractions, things to see and do here in Krakow, got a lot cooler recently with the opening of the Owl's Cave, which is exactly what it sounds like. Okay, it's not an actual cave, but it is underground. And it has owls and falcons and hawks and kestrels and maybe something else. I'm not sure. We'll find out in just a moment. But you don't just go there to look at these beautiful animals and learn all about them from an expert. No, you get to hold them. And I mean, hold like all of them. And let me tell you, if you've never done this, this is the most Instagrammable, that's a word now, right? Instagrammable moment ever. I mean, you feel like a medieval warlord overlooking a battlefield or a wizard or something like that. That was my impression anyway. You can make it, you can come up with your own comparison when you get the chance to hold these birds. Anyway, I visited the Owl's Cave recently, had a chance to talk to the man who made it all happen. His name is Michael. And he's joining me now online for reasons that I'll explain in just a moment. So before we go any further, Mike, thanks for joining me here on Florida Man in Poland.
Nice to meet you and nice to join. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let me just say quickly, we were supposed to have this conversation in the Owl's Cave. I visited you there not long ago, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was. And it was towards the end of your day, but people kept coming in. We just couldn't find the time to talk. And I only mentioned this to illustrate that to show that the word is out about the Owl's Cave. People know it. People are talking about this, and it's become a great success. So congratulations on that. You must be proud.
I am proud. Yeah, I couldn't even imagine for the sort of results I've achieved now in this cave. It's unbelievable.
Okay, before we go back to the Owl's Cave, I've got a few questions here just to help us get an idea of what you're all about, and kind of an introduction to the world of birds of prey. I call it rapid fire. I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you pretty quickly. So I need short or short-ish answers. Okay. So Mike, are you ready for rapid fire?
Yep. Fire away.
Let's fire away. Let's do it. Mike, do you have any cool scars from your time working with these birds?
No. Short answer. No, I don't. The birds are all well trained and they don't actually injure me. So no scars.
And I guess that heavy duty leather glove works. It does what it's supposed to do, I think.
It does exactly what it's supposed to do.
Do birds have favorite kinds of treats, or will they eat basically anything?
Depends on the species. Most would love a mouse. Some guy came in the other day offering sweets. Not a good idea. Mice. They don't like sweets.
Speaking of mice, I think I know the answer to this question. What is the weirdest thing that you have or have had in your fridge or freezer at home because of your work?
You'd be surprised. It's all not just mice, but it's all kinds of different dead animal products in there. Mice, rats, rabbits, quail, ducks, all kinds of different prey that birds would like to eat.
So right next to the ice cream or the frozen pizza is a surprise, basically.
I started off small. Originally, I had one freezer. My family had to put up with having mice not too far from the ice cream and things like that in the freezer. Now, yeah, times have changed. I've got a couple of freezers.
How does an owl or a falcon or a hawk, how do they let me know that they really don't like me?
A hawk, if you look him in the eyes, he'll sometimes give you a little squawk. He'll stare at you, intimidating you, looking you directly in the eyes. And he'll let you know. He'll scream.
And an owl, does an owl have a language for this? What's their body language for get away, leave me alone?
Owls tend to hiss. They make a hissing sound and
Owls hiss?
They hiss and click their beaks together.
Did not know that. Okay.
Clicking sounds. Yeah, clicking sounds tells you the owl's a bit pissed, a bit annoyed.
50-50 question. The cooler superpower, the vision of an owl or the speed of a hawk?
The speed of a hawk, the speed of a falcon.
Sorry, falcon.
You got that wrong. Sorry to say
Oops.
that.
You're the expert.
That's why you need to come in the cave and learn.
Exactly.
Owls have great hearing, good vision, but great hearing. Falcons have speed, and hawks have big broad wings which allow them to soar in the sky.
When I was here on the Owl's Cave, you told the story of, speaking of the owl superpower, you told the story of how owls can hear tiny mice under some ridiculous amount of snow barely moving with no problem, yeah?
Yeah, that's the great grey owl. The great grey owl lives in boreal forests, and they can find their prey moving under thick amounts of snow, pounce through the snow with great expertise, precision, and catch the mouse.
Next question. What's the worst smell in the world of birds of prey?
Worst smell? One of my owls does the worst poops in the world. All the others, all the others do nice little plain simple poops. One of them just they stink. I don't look.
It's the owls.
I can be halfway through a performance and halfway through a show, and this owl will just poop all over, and I'm like, oh my god! It takes ages to clean in front of the guests, and it's a bit embarrassing, really.
Clear the room, huh? Clear the room. All right, Mike. Congratulations! You have successfully completed rapid fire. Well done. Well done. Well done. Before we get into the world of birds of prey here, Mike, why don't you tell us something about yourself, how you got into the world of birds of prey, and a question I'm sure you've never been asked. What brought you to Poland?
So what got me into birds of prey? I've loved birds of prey since I was about 8 years old. A falconer visited my primary school with a little tiny kestrel. And at the time of visiting, he showed us this amazing little bird up close. And then he pointed out of the school window, and we had a wild kestrel hovering over our school field. So hunting over our school grounds, looked out the window. I was absolutely amazed by this, seeing the bird up close and then seeing one in the wild hunting. Absolutely amazing. I've loved birds of prey ever since. At that age, would never have imagined that I would have been working with birds of prey as a career. Could never have dreamt of it. It was quite even maybe a bit uncommon to even see these kind of birds back in those days when I was a child, and now it's become more popular over the years. But so it's like a dream come true. And on to the second question, which was about what brought me to Poland. Yeah, so it's probably the usual story, but basically after university, I spent 2 years traveling around the world, lived in Australia and New Zealand for a couple of years, and came back to the UK. Got a job saving hard to actually saving to go around the other way around the world, back to South America. And during that time, I don't know, I think I was on a trip to London and to visit friends, and I was in a bar and I just happened to bump into an amazing Polish woman. And so the Polish lady, she brought me over to Poland basically. And as soon as I visited Krakow, I just fell in love with this city. I was like, wow, when do I move here? And I literally I didn't spend the money I'd saved to go traveling back around the world. I spent that money on coming to move and live in Poland. And so that's what brought me out to Poland originally. Polish lady.
I suspected there was a young lady in there somewhere. And yeah,
it was the Polish lady, but it was Krakow itself. As soon as I came, we're talking over 20 years ago now. What an amazing city, and it's just continues to live up to that over the years.
Tell us something about the journey from turning your passion for these birds into something into the Owl's Cave, a way to share this passion with visitors, to visitors from all over the world who come to visit Krakow.
Yeah, so it started off more as a hobby. Basically, I'll tell you my story of what happened. When my first son was born, we moved back to the UK for 2 years. And during that time, I was teaching in a school, teaching special needs kids, assisting special needs kids, and then actually doing some teaching in the school. That was my job, but decided at the same time I need to focus more on my hobbies. So I, always having this passion for birds of prey, I decided to go and actually volunteer in a falconry centre not so far from where I lived back in the UK. And that was just kind of a bit of a hobby volunteering job to get the practical skills and knowledge working with birds of prey, knowing that one day I might get the Harris hawk as my first bird and learn how to train that bird based on my knowledge then. So I came back to Poland, worked in an office job for about 10 years. And during that time, I started reading up more about falconry and how to do all the techniques with birds of prey, reading all the books, watching endless amounts of YouTube videos. And then I actually got the Harris hawk as my first bird as a hobby. Spent a year dedicated to that bird, just that's why he's one of my best trained birds, because I just dedicate all my time to that one bird. Um, then, as well as working, of course. And then at a similar time, I bought a large piece of land, an old farm out in the countryside, just for personal use at that point. Shortly after, I actually lost my office job. I got made redundant from that job. And that kind of made me rethink about things, all the things that are important in life. And I actually then decided, why don't I try and make the birds into my passion, into my living? So I started to get a few more birds that I thought people would be interested in, the kestrel, the barn owl, ones that I liked as well, I knew people would like. And I started making all the outbuildings of my farm, the wooden buildings, into aviaries for the birds. And so it started to become like a little mini falconry centre in the countryside. Um, so I was then like taking people out into the countryside, groups of people coming out for private viewings of the birds in the countryside, flying them in the nature, and taking people for walks, holding the owls and carrying the owls and flying the hawk and different birds out there. And it was really enjoyable. But in the Polish winter time, no one really wants to go out with those birds. Yeah, flying birds in -10 doesn't happen. I got another job online in an evening, working for the US online. Um, that gave me the daytime free with my birds. So I spent the same amount of time with the birds, training them, kept up with the training in the daytimes, but working online. Then I just decided, yeah, sooner or later that job again will come to an end at some point. What will I do when I'm not doing that job? And I suddenly thought to myself, I spend so much time with these birds. It's my passion, and it's my let's say it becomes a lifestyle. You can't, you wake up in the morning thinking about, oh, is the hawk okay? Oh, should I go and spend some extra time with the birds? Are they okay in the heat today? Should I, keep them cool, etc. You wake up thinking about these birds. They become part of the family, especially some of the owls. You get such a strong connection, a bond with those birds. And so I have my own family, and I have my family of birds. So I decided at that point, how can I make these birds into my passion, into my true living? And how can I bring the birds to the people rather than the people having to come out into the countryside to see the birds? And that's when I started looking for venues around Krakow, and luckily found the perfect venue for myself in the Owl's Cave. So I decided to go ahead and try and set up this amazing cave that would give people the opportunity to come close to the birds. And yeah, it's actually turned out to be something more than I could ever imagined, ever have imagined. Since I opened, I've had famous big names in British falconry actually coming over to visit me and see the cave, and also just falconers that have been on holiday in Krakow just by chance, sort of stumbling upon it and coming right in through the door. And so it's kind of connected me more with the British falconry community. And it's opened a lot of doors for me, to be honest. And the same for people. I noticed the effects of this when I hear what people say about their falconry centres in the UK, for example, how sometimes they suffer. Like this time of year, you look outside right now, it's boiling hot. It's really scorching out there. It's 30 plus degree heat, let's say. Yeah, so they this time of the year, they actually suffer because the people don't want to visit the falconry centres outdoors when it's really hot and sunny, and like 30, 40 degree heat. It's too hot for British people, especially when we're used to the cooler climate. And so they don't want to be out in the countryside, and the birds don't want to cooperate, and they don't want to be out flying in 30 degree heat. It's quite dangerous for some of the birds. So those falconry centres kind of suffer. The Owl's Cave that I've created, it's turned out to be something amazing, because in the winter when it's really cold outside, -10, the Owl's Cave keeps a nice stable temperature all year long. So in the winter it's quite warm, but in the summertime right now it's really cool. So it means that, people can come in and see the birds, and it's a pleasant environment to be in. So it's turned out to be something really special.
You've made a couple of references to this already, but I'm curious about the idea that working with birds of prey, it's not so much a hobby, it's more of a lifestyle. More, it demands a lot of your time, maybe around the clock, attention and care for these birds. Tell us something about the kind of, the invisible, everyday side of life with these birds.
Yeah, the people that come in the cave get to just stand up, come to the front of the room, and hold a hold a bird on their hand, and they don't actually see how much work and effort has gone in prior to them holding that bird. I mean, every morning I wake up, I have to prepare the birds food. So yeah, next in the same kitchen where my family are sometimes eating breakfast, I still have to prepare the food for these birds. So I'm cutting up little chickens and mice into small pieces. If I want to be flying those birds regularly, they only fly for small pieces. So if I want them to do more flying, then I have to produce more small pieces. So
I'm
yeah,
laughing, Mike, because I guess your kids are used to it. They're used to seeing the mice in the freezer and the fridge, and so if you see them cutting up, if they see you cutting up the mice at breakfast, well, this is just another day, right?
let's call it the Falconer lifestyle. Yeah, my family, it's something that's not just about me, but the family also have to be involved in that. So yeah, they're waking up, they're seeing me preparing the birds' food. Sometimes while they're eating breakfast. Okay, maybe not every day. I don't do that deliberately every day, but occasionally they might see that. But it's also something where my family have now started to be involved. So especially with the owls, we raise the owls to be social birds, so they start their life in the family home, kind of developing around our family to make them so tame and friendly and so loving like the birds I have. And my children are there supporting me all the way in terms, even with my latest little owl that I brought into the cave recently. My 8-year-old daughter has helped me literally raise that bird from the very beginning. She's been feeding it. She's been, so those mice that she sees in the freezer, maybe, or in my second freezer, the mice that she sees in my second freezer, um, she then sees me preparing that food, but she's then feeding that little mouse to my little owl, who she treats as her little owl. And she's really taken care of that bird. It's teaching her how to care for animals from a really early age, which is important. And also, she's just learning all the skills of basic falconry, how to put the equipment on, how to actually fly the bird and train the bird. And yeah, she's learned all that at age 8. That's something, when I first saw that kestrel at age 8, I could never have even dreamed about that sort of the knowledge. But my daughter actually has this from the start there. So not saying she will want to go on and do this in the future, but it's there if she wants to. She's really interested. Very keen.
You've introduced thousands and thousands of people to this world, and up close, literally putting the bird on their arm. And I noticed this when I visited you in the Owl's Cave, that just the looks on people's faces, they see other people doing it, they're prepared to, for their turn, but there's something about that moment when they put on that glove and the hawk or the owl or whatever is right in front of their face on their arm. Is just the way their face lights up. It really is incredible. I know that's not a question, more of an observation, but just pretend there was a question there and run with it.
So yeah, the birds they're connecting children to nature at an early age. It's very important that kids experience birds like this close up, because otherwise, then they're not going to want to care about nature in the future. We're now in a world of technology where kids are seeing artificial intelligence, AI owls online. They start to think that's real when in fact it's nothing like a real owl. And you get to an end of a little clip, and then you'll see an owl with a third leg appearing or something at the moment, and you'll be like, it's not real, but some of it looks very real and convincing. And the kids need to see the real owls up close, the real birds, I should say, up close, and just it's really important for them at a young age. They can check, like with me. I was 8 years old when I first saw this little kestrel in my primary school. That had some amazing consequences on the rest of my life, and I think it's important for kids to experience these birds up close. And yeah, it's like you put on that glove and you can have a little 6-year-old child turns into a mini falconer. They feel confident. They feel like they're in control of that little bird on the glove there. And I don't know, it's a really nice feeling for them. Something special, I think, for especially the younger kid generations. But
Yeah, I mean,
not only the young, sorry to say, but not sorry to interrupt. Not only the young, but the seniors as well. The seniors, people coming in who've spent their whole life not being able to see these birds up close, and then they'll come in, they'll put the glove on, and they'll say, "Wow, I've just ticked off one of my bucket list things. I've held a big owl that I never dreamt I would ever do in my life." And then they come in, and it's an amazing experience for them.
it really is. I mean, like I said in the introduction, uh, I'm pretty sure Instagrammable is a word these days, and it comes to mind because I mean, it's there's just something about it that just you mentioned the kids and the looks in the look in their eyes, and when I was in the Owl's Cave, I saw you passing these birds around to lots of people, and even some adults who were kind of they were happy to see their kids get this experience. So when it was their turn, they had that same look in their eyes. They were super excited about it too. And there's just something about it. And just, the way that the modern world, you want to share all these experiences, and it's just what you're doing. I guess what I'm trying to say poorly is that what you're doing is at the intersection of a few different things here. It's just that universal feeling of just being attracted to these birds, the modern urge to share these experiences with the world. I mean, you're just right there where these two lines intersect. You're located, what, 3 minutes walk away from the main square? I'll put a map up here on the screen to show people just how close you are, but you're literally around the corner from what we can call, ground zero for most visitors to Krakow, the very, very heart of the city, the main market square. You're right around the corner. If you can find the main square in Krakow, and I think you can easily find the Owl's Cave because it's just down the street and around the corner, and it's right there. Very, very easy to find. All right, I got a few more questions for you about the birds themselves. I learned a ton when I was sitting there watching you make your presentation. It's just fact after interesting fact after interesting fact. It's unbelievable how much information and you have such a great style, great delivery. I didn't feel like I was in a lecture at school. I felt like I was just listening to an expert who loves what he's doing. So well done. But you made me come home, and I hit the internet immediately to start researching these things. So you inspired me to learn more about these birds. So well done. In no particular order here, I did not know this. You cannot tell the sex of these birds until or unless they lay eggs. Did I hear that right?
With the owls, it's difficult with owls. With the diurnal birds, the hawks, the falcons, etc., the female birds are usually so much bigger than the males that there's a huge difference. So you can tell straight away a female Harris hawk from a male Harris hawk, for example. But with the owls, there's such a close sort of, it depends on the species, of course. There are ways of telling. But yeah, in most cases, a lot of my birds are not DNA tested. And that's the only way we'd really truly know if the owl is male or female. And I kind of just leave it to chance. And I start to see, maybe after a year, I start to see the different characteristics between the male and female. But yeah, it's not so easy at the very beginning when they're young. So like this new owl, the new owl I have in at the moment, 3 months old, I have no idea if that's a male or female bird right now. It's so difficult
That's
to
amazing.
tell.
That's amazing. Okay, well, maybe you'll find out by accident one day, unless you do a DNA test, right? That's the
Yeah.
only way to be 100% sure.
There are
Okay.
a few other methods that are not as effective, but yeah, DNA is the way in this day and age.
Do these birds have a personality as we understand personality, or is every bird just like every other bird?
Nope, they all have their own character, their own personality. That's what makes training birds of prey quite difficult, because you can learn about how every species are slightly different, have their own different ways of training, different techniques, and etc. But then when it comes down to each individual bird, they all have their own personalities. There's two owl sets. Let's say I have two barn owls. One of them, I know I can put on a perch right at the front of the room, and it'll just sit there nice and calm, quiet, peaceful. The second barn owl, I know, is actually too social to the point where she really wants to be with the people. So she would spend the whole time jumping up, trying to get on the table to be with people. So I couldn't sit her on a little perch at the front, because I know she'd be just jumping off, trying to get to the people. She's got such a nice that kind of outgoing personality, let's say, that she wants to be socialized. She wants to have the contact with people. Whereas the other little owl, he'd rather have a bit of time for himself and just chill on his perch. And the other two owls I have, big African spotted eagle owls. One of them, I raised them both at home with my family. One of them was always coming towards me in a positive way. The second one was always a little bit more sort of standoffish and going away from me a little bit. So it just shows that they were raised with exactly the same technique, but one of them was just a positive owl coming towards me. One just didn't quite understand the training and the socializing part, and was a little bit more difficult, let's say. Both birds are lovely birds in their own way, but one is still a little bit more outgoing and polite and friendly coming towards me, and the second one is a little bit more hesitant and nervous. And it's just down to personality.
You tell me if my assumptions are wrong here, okay? Feel free to correct me. But I have the impression that unlike a dog or a horse, let's say mammals, birds of prey are not really motivated by a desire to please humans sometimes. They don't need that affection or praise. You don't have to say good boy, to a bird. How do you build like a genuine bond of trust with an animal that basically sees you as a source of food?
Time and effort. It's about time, dedicating enough time to each individual bird. So, for example, let's say my Harris hawk. That was my first bird. When I got the Harris hawk as a hobby, it was my only bird, and I dedicated 1 year, complete year of all of my time. If I was going for a walk in a local forest, the hawk would be on my glove coming for a walk. If I was sitting out in my garden having a cup of tea, the hawk would be sitting on my glove close to me. It'd be on in a. I brought it close to home. I had it on a little perch in my garden. It would be there all the time. The hawk was seeing me all the time. I was seeing the hawk all the time. It's therefore one of my sort of best trained birds and my most reliable bird, flying free when I go on a walk in the countryside. It'll just follow me because it knows that it can trust me. It knows me very well, basically. I spent a lot of time there.
So
Dedication.
they know you, they trust you, they recognize you. And for example, if suddenly I was the guy with the food, they wouldn't just start following me and interact with me just because I had the food, because they have bonds with you.
They would, because at the same time as me spending lots of time with that bird, I've also had other people coming with me on walks with the birds to experience this nice feeling of having a hawk flying down from a tree to the glove. Yes, at the end of the day, the hawk wants to come back to the glove because it gets its food reward. But at the same time, that hawk has learned that it's got a bit of a relationship with myself and whoever's with me at the time coming for that walk. The walk of, let's say, freedom, where it can fly wherever it wants, it can do whatever it wants, but it always comes back down from the tree whenever we want it to come back down. You could go for a 10-minute walk and it will just follow you from tree to tree to tree, doing whatever it wants in between. But then at the end of that sort of 10-15-minute walk, if you want to call it down, you put the glove up with a bit of food and it comes back down. But it doesn't just come to me, it comes to anyone. That's because it's got used to me and somebody else being there, having that experience. So it kind of wants to. It knows that if it's by a human, the Harris hawk is a very intelligent bird. So that bird knows they live in social groups in the wild. So if it sees me and another person taking it for a walk, it feels like we as a let's say 3 of us are a little team unit, like it would be in the wild. So it wants to kind of stick together with us. Sees us as like a little team. And that with the Harris hawk, all birds are different, as I say, as we mentioned.
Speaking of food, that's one of the things that I found fascinating when I was there listening to you in the Owl's Cave. I did not know this, that weight management is extremely important in the world of birds of prey. Tell us about that. Why is it so important? And tell us about the fine, small, almost trivial amounts, how they can make a difference in the lives of these birds.
If you're a true falconer, you should be able to tell your bird's weight, not by weighing on a weighing scale, but actually by feeling the keel bone. If the keel bone feels sharp, then you know the bird is a little bit underweight. well, depending on the sharpness of the keel bone. If you can feel that there's muscles at the side, meat at the side, it's got muscles, but you can also feel if it's got fat there. So you can tell by feeling the keel bone's sort of size and shape as to whether it's underweight, on weight, or overweight. And the weighing scales are actually just a way of sort of backing up the falconer's actual knowledge of the bird. So I can tell if my hawk's what weight he's at, if he's going to return, pretty much just by understanding his keel bone and his actual weight. But
So
yeah,
if they are a bit overweight, even by a few grams, does this make them less willing to fly, less willing to return? How does
it,
it affect their
that
behavior?
depends on the size of the bird. Yeah. So, for example, with the tiny kestrel, the weight management's a bit more difficult because you've got such a fine line for error with that bird. Let's say with my bird, I know that at 210 grams, that bird will just sit on his perch. You could untie all his equipment, wave his food in the air, and at that weight, he'll just sit there looking at you and going, "Nope, not flying for my dinner, not hungry enough." At 180 to 190 grams, that bird will be flying to me backwards and forwards like a little rocket. At 160 grams, that bird could be borderline sort of starving and dying. Uh, with him, it's such a small weight range to play with, let's say, in between his being underweight and being overweight. So, yeah, I know by weighing him, I definitely always use the weighing scale with that little kestrel because I know that there's a smaller margin for error there, and I've got to make sure it's exactly right. And so, but yeah, with him, 5 grams can make a difference between him being in a good mood and a bad mood, being in a fast flying mode where he's returning rapidly like a little rocket, or if he's going to go and sit on the perch, think about coming down for the food and take his time. So it's about the response times of the birds returning to the glove as well. This is also crucial in training birds of prey if we want them to be fit and healthy. If you want a bird that's like an athlete, like a sprinter, you want that bird to fly to his perch from the glove to the glove, back to the perch, then back to the glove, and you want him coming backwards and forwards quite rapidly, like a sprinter, like not getting a rest, just constantly coming, and that keeps them really fit. Whereas if they're flying off, I don't know, for a few minutes, sitting on it takes flying backwards and forwards, but then they're sitting on the perch and looking at you for 2 minutes before they do their next flight, then you know that bird is not keen enough to want to come back as he should be.
Try to, if it's even possible, try to help us understand the feeling you get when when you first fly, when you first let a new bird fly free and you trust that it will return to your glove.
Oh, there's no way to even describe that feeling. It's just you feel well. It's a relief, a sense of relief, to be honest. The first time, because you don't know if the bird's actually going to come back. It has a choice when it's flying free. There's two ways. It can either fly off into the forest and never return, or it's going to fly to the trees and then come back to you, just like it has done in the training. We train them enough that we should be confident when we take that first step to release the bird. You're so confident because it's been doing the same routine over and over again that you think it cannot possibly go wrong. It should automatically be programmed to return to the glove. But of course, yeah, there's always that sense of, oh, is it going to return? But it is a huge relief when that bird does come back. But at the same time, you feel so proud, and the feeling's intense. You feel so proud of yourself that you've managed to get this little bird that started off maybe in a wild state that didn't know anything in the world, and you've kind of mothered it a bit, and then all of a sudden it's coming back down from a tree and doing a great spectacular flight from a tall tree back down to the glove, and and that bird is going to come back with that, whether there's food on that glove or not. So that's the other thing. It's not about the food reward. The bird will come back to that glove hoping there's food there. There's not always food there. We don't always give the bird a piece of food when it returns. So, yeah, obviously the first time we call it back in, when it's been released for the first time, there's a piece of food there. But then after that, you have to kind of vary it so that the bird's not always getting a food reward for coming back to that glove. the bird's got to always want to come back to that glove at some point. So yeah, but it's a real feeling when that bird comes for the first time. Even you can't even describe it. You just feel like you're at one with nature. You've got a connection. You've got this bird that's it's trusting you, and it's coming back because it knows that it can come back, and it will get at some point get a food reward. But it's also coming back to the person that's kind of built this sort of team relationship with, especially with the Harris hawk.
So visitors to the Owl's Cave, I think they can count on holding at least 4 or 5 different birds, I think, right?
Yeah. Right now, I realize that a lot of my birds in there, I always worked up in terms of size. So we start a bit smaller with the easier birds, and then as we go on the presentation, the birds do get bigger. But I realized that I was having a lot of families with children coming in, so I realized that I needed to get another small owl. So that's why I do have at the moment a new little tiny 3-month-old owl in the cave. And
yeah, you showed him when I was there. He's super, super cute. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's already a hit. He's settled in very well.
Of course.
And little kids can come in and hold that bird nice and easy. So it's another bird where I have no risk with that bird, because I know that it's not it could be a dangerous bird, but it's not. It's pretty solid already, that bird. So I know that small 4, 5, 6-year-old kids can come in, and if they're well behaved, they can come and get close to that bird.
Well, Mike, congratulations once again on the Owl's Cave. Fantastic success. It's like I said, when I went like 2 weeks ago to meet you there, we couldn't even find time to talk because more and more people were coming in. I think it's a sign of things to come. Word is out. People are talking about the Owl's Cave. So congratulations and well done. Where can people go to find out more about the Owl's Cave?
So yeah, the best place to probably find out a bit more information is if you're following the Facebook page. We have the Owl's Cave Kraków Facebook page. There's the website owlscave.com. There's a TikTok channel. We have an Owl's Cave Kraków TikTok channel. Find us on there. You can see the techniques of raising those little owls in the house on there. You can see interesting videos of me training the birds, my kids getting involved a bit, and sort of the outdoor sort of side of the business as well as the cave side. So that's very interesting on TikTok. And then you've got Google and TripAdvisor, lots of 5-star reviews, and that's another amazing thing that I wasn't expecting when I started this place. Just the positive feedback from people, just seeing everyone that comes in there seems to enjoy themselves. And so Google, check out the 5-star reviews and check out the information there. That's the best place for the most updated information for if there's a day of closing, for example. I'm open most of this summer, and most of the summertime it will be open. And the other TripAdvisor, TripAdvisor we're on there too. Also very nice positive comments from previous guests, and it's getting up there as one of the sort of highlights to things to do in the center of Krakow.
I'll put links to everything in the description below, of course. Like I said earlier, if you're standing in Krakow's main square, you're 3 minutes walk from the Owl's Cave. You're closer to the Owl's Cave than you are to the castle in Krakow. So why not go to the Owl's Cave first? Save the castle for later. That's my recommendation. I was there a couple of weeks ago. It's absolutely fantastic. Mike is an amazing presenter. The birds are just impressive, majestic, beautiful, amazing. Like I said, get your Instagrammable moment, learn about these fantastic creatures. And who knows, Mike, you could be talking to the young version of yourself all those years ago when you had your experience at the school. Who knows? You're probably talking to the next version of Mike in the Owl's Cave here in Krakow.
Yeah, I really, really hope so. That's one of the main aims. Get the kids close to these birds, give them an amazing experience they'll never forget. And hopefully, it will affect them in the future. They can go on to do good things for nature and conservation too. Very important.
Thanks again to Mike for joining me here on Florida Man in Poland. Thank you for watching, of course. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And while you're here, why not check out one of these other videos from Florida Man in Poland? Again, all links to the Owl's Cave in the description below. Check it out, people. It really is amazing. Fantastic way to spend your time here in Krakow. Anyway, thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.